I'm going to tell you about one book that changed my life. That book was The Cashflow Quadrant, which is written by Robert Kiyosaki, who's best known for the first book in the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad. The Cashflow Quadrant was the second book in the series, and I basically was invited to join a network marketing company. Back then it was called Quickstar, it later became Amway. And in the starter kit came a few things and the book. But the person that pitched the network marketing company to me explained the BI triangle, which is the foundation of the Cashflow Quadrant book. So it really made a lot of sense to me. And light bulbs were going off in my head. I thought at the time that I'd have to work really hard and save up a lot of money and pretty much would never be able to get rich because I wasn't rich. I wasn't born into a rich family. We were actually pretty poor. And by reading the book, I realized that anyone can become rich. Now, before I get too far into it, I do want to say it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. So if you're thinking, oh, this is just another one of those get-rich-quick schemes. No, it's a get-rich-slow scheme. Some people can get rich faster. Certainly people could do better than me. I spent the last 9 years reading and researching and basically putting out blog posts and videos for free. So, there's not much money in that, but I quit focusing on money once I got to a certain point. And I was always striving to get to the point where I had free time. So let me go ahead and explain a little bit about the Cashflow Quadrant. When you look at the quadrant, on the left side, those are basically workers, people that trade their time for money. Whereas on the right-hand side, you've got the opposite. These are employers, business owners, and investors. So they trade their money for time. See, if you always want to be making money, but you have to trade your time for money, then you're always going to be working because you're always going to need money coming in. So to break free from that, we've got to figure out how to make our money work for us. And how we do that is by crossing over into the right side of the quadrant and becoming either a business owner or an investor. On the left side, you've got an employee or self-employed. A lot of times people think they have their own business when they're self-employed. But as the book points out, if you still are required to run the business, it's not a business, it's busyness. And a lot of self-employed people end up having to work more than full-time. That's just the nature of their businesses. So that's his way of distinguishing the difference between self-employed and the business owner. Now, I don't want to get too much into the details of the book because you might as well just read it. Trust me, it's well worth it. I'm really here to tell you about how it changed my life, okay? Not just the information in it. That's not what changed my life. It's the impact it had on me, and it changed the direction I was going in my life. So it didn't just change my life in a financial way, which, by the way, I do want to point out that these kind of things, they take a long time to build. But the thing is if you know how to do it over the course of a lifetime, you can become wealthy and financially free. Now, those are two different things. A lot of people are wealthy but not financially free. You can be financially free and be broke. If you're homeless, you don't have any bills. But who wants to be financially free with no money? But who wants to be wealthy with no time? So once you get out of trading your time for money, because if you're doing that, there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only so much you can work, so you're limited in what you can make. But once you break free from that, the income potential becomes infinite. And that's how you get the best between wealth and financial freedom. But what was interesting about it is that it actually got me started reading. Before that, I wouldn't even read in class. The teachers would try to make me read, and I'm like, you can't make me read. I didn't like reading. I hadn't read a book. since I was like a really young kid. And it got me reading, and at the end of the book, it had a recommended reading section where they mentioned other books, and not only financial books, but personal development books. So when I got done reading the Cashflow Quadrant, I read other books in the Rich Dad series, other financial books, but because personal development helps with business and finance and stuff like that, because you want to be able to sell, you want to be able to lead and stuff like that. So it really made me start to value my personal development, to invest in myself, not just with money, but time. Spending time reading books from the greats, such as Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. So it led me down a path of reading, which then eventually got me into audiobooks, because I can only read so much, and sometimes it's just hard for me to read. I can lay down, rest my eyes, listen to an audiobook. I like both. Now I've gotten to the opposite, where it's almost completely audio and video and very little reading. Unfortunately, I would love to read more. But let me take a second and remind you to hit the thumbs up if this is good so far, you guys. Subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I appreciate every subscriber. And if you want to help and support the channel, you can use my affiliate link to purchase anything you want on Amazon. All you have to do is go to theawarenessrevolution.com/Amazon, and that's going to take you to Amazon, and whatever you buy that day, I'll get a small commission for. And that would be greatly appreciated. Let me continue on with the rest of my story. So as I was saying, at first I was mostly reading, and then I started getting into audiobooks. But at first I couldn't retain much of the information from audio. It was really hard. I couldn't find stuff that I liked. I was getting these business tapes at the time. So I didn't like it right away. I thought it was kind of boring, but I'm like, well, hey, whatever I've got to do to become wealthy and financially free. If they say read these books, I'm going to read them. If they say listen to these tapes, I'm going to listen. And over time, I began to appreciate the audio more and more. I began to be able to understand what they were talking about, and at first I couldn't do anything while I listened. Then eventually I got to the point where I could be in a car driving and listen and still follow the conversation. And this really opened up a lot for me, because I became a lot more productive. I was able to start listening to audiobooks before I went to sleep, while I'm eating. And it wasn't until years later that it became an obsession like it is today, where I listen all the time. I'm always on YouTube watching other YouTubers, listening to people, listening to podcasts, which, by the way, I have a podcast, which is theawarenessrevolution.com/iTunes. That'll take you to my iTunes podcast. But I also have a book podcast where I go through a bunch of my books. So if you're interested in seeing some of the books that I have, check that out. It will be in the link in the description below. I don't actually have the Cashflow Quadrant book anymore because I was so passionate about it. I was telling everyone about it. And I knew this girl who was getting a settlement. And I was like, look, you gotta read this book. So I gave it to her to borrow, to read. Because I didn't want her to blow her money. Because one of the things that they talk about is spending your money on assets. And he defines assets by something that puts money into your pocket, something that produces income. And obviously, if you spend it on liabilities, stuff that doesn't produce income, you can just blow the whole settlement away. So I was trying to help her, and she never read the book, unfortunately, and I'm sure the money didn't last very long either. But, it's not a big deal, but that book is sentimental because it changed my life. So word to the wise, don't let anyone borrow anything that you don't want to lose. If it's sentimental, don't even let anyone borrow it. You're better off just buying them the book. Especially nowadays, you can get it used on Amazon. A lot of times $4 or $5. So I learned that lesson a few times, and I wish I could. I wish I just had that one because that particular copy is sentimental. But anyways, so that's how this one book, the Cashflow Quadrant, changed my life. And as a side note, I like the first two books. The rest of the books I don't like so much. But I do like Robert Kiyosaki's Choose to Be Rich course. I'll also link to that if I can find a link in the description below. It's audio and with a workbook. It's really good. But I have taken Robert Kiyosaki's seminars for real estate training and paid like $5,000 for it and was pretty unsatisfied. So I do want to issue that warning because I've been through it all. I went through all this content, including the expensive seminars, and I don't want you guys to do the same thing that I did. Watch this video, and like, oh, Robert Kiyosaki's great. Jeremy said that, you know, it changed his life and everything, and then go spend money on the seminars. You know, hopefully I'm going to come up with my own real estate seminars, and they'll be much more affordable, straight to the point, and will give you the proper value for the money that you spend. So that's my story, you guys. Again, like and subscribe, share this video, because one book can change your life. It may not be the Cashflow Quadrant, but maybe you'll watch my video with me showing you all these different books, and maybe something else will speak to you. You know, my journey started with that, and then eventually got into personal development, and then it got into health, and so on and so forth. And now I'm all over the place. I study a bunch of different topics. It's a lot to keep up with. And it all started from this one book. But your path may be different. You may start off with health and then eventually get into money. And the awareness revolution ties it all together because it's all intertwined. And that's one of the unique things about me, my message, my channel, my upcoming book and everything, is that I connect the dots because I study all these different subjects which seem to be independent of each other, but they are all intertwined with one another. And knowing the truth about each one reveals a picture that you wouldn't believe, you wouldn't even imagine unless you knew a little bit about each subject. So that's why you want to subscribe, because I've got lots of great content coming out in the future. It's all right here. It just takes time to produce it all. But if there's anything that you want me to produce, any questions, just leave me a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.